And welcome back to KTN Sunday Night. Time for Checkpoint. The last 100 days of the opposition have been filled with strong statements and even from time to time a few bizarre moments as Quad grappled with how to launch a strong opposition without its two luminaries, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, in parliament. Raila has been outspoken on various issues, including the pay hike demands by MPs, which he opposing the pupils' laptops in favor of teachers' pay demands, and in his latest statement said Quad would boycott future elections if they were still run by the IEBC. Joining us now is Professor Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst, is seated to my far right, and Moses Kuria, a strategist. Gentlemen, welcome to you both and good to see you. It's been hard for Quad to find their voice in the House, lacking those strong voices of Raila and Kalonzo. How do you think they have fared so far?
I think, the performance is below average. The reason is that there is no opposition in Kenya. Anybody who thinks there is an opposition has made a mistake. What we have is a group of people posing as Jubilee and CORD and competing to take power to do the same thing. Because if you ask the opposition in this country, what is it opposed to? If Raila Odinga is the head of the opposition, even if he's out of parliament, one expects that when he speaks about certain national issues is supported. His MPs participated in vetting in people who many people didn't agree with, they didn't refuse. On salaries of MPs, he spoke against it, but his MPs, including John Mbadi and Jagoyo Midio, supported that, and they wanted more salary. So there has been corruption. These people have been in government in the past, and we know very well that they served as ministers. Did they do better on corruption? Did they do better on ethnicity and tribalism? Mm-hmm. So what alternative government do they want to set up, and what are they opposed to? It's against that background that I say there is no opposition, but they are just part of the second wing, which you could call probably the slightly radical wing of government, which is trying to take over power to do the same thing.
Moses?
Well, I would agree with Professor Kisiangani. We don't have an opposition, and I think CORD has not gotten down to the business of putting Jubilee on its toes. You would expect that now we have a minority in parliament, that they have formed all the committees, people like Namwamba is the chairman of the parliamentary, the PAC, and that is as far as it goes in parliament. Now, outside parliament, I was expecting that by now, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka would have named, sort of even an informal shadow cabinet, so that we have somebody. We know that when Henry Rotich talks about the economy, there's somebody from CORD who is talking about, countermeasures or showing alternative policies as what they would do. Instead, what we have is what I would call vuvuzela politics, just shouting and screaming out there with actually no sense of direction and actually sort of no agenda. But even more ominously, I think their understanding of opposition is actually agitation. And I think there is a difference between that. Opposition is about providing an alternative government.
Do you think there's been a lack of strong leadership in the House, that the absence of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka has cost this country and really all of us an opposition, because we do need a voice that will check on government?
I don't think that the question, the problem is about having a strong person in the House or not. The question is the values. If you have strong values that people believe in, then they can go to parliament with an alternative economy, an alternative political dispensation, and an alternative way of creating jobs and making this country wealthy. These values are not there. If you look at the manifestos of different political parties, including Jubilee and CORD and even Eagle Alliance, you see no fundamental difference between these manifestos. And therefore, even when they meet in parliament, most of the things unite them. They are united in a lot of things. So if they are united in a lot of things, it's not about a strong leader. A strong leader is a leader who has certain a value system, that this value system makes him diametrically different from the other person he is opposed to. So in my opinion, CORD is not opposed to Jubilee in any way. They're just quarreling in the same house, but they have the same value system.
But their leader being Raila Odinga, you saying he is the one who lacks the value system and is not giving the stewardship? Because Moses, I just want to beg off his point that he would have been perhaps the one to whip up members in the House and say, we do not support, for instance, MPs increasing their pay.
Yes, and then whip up everybody, and everybody who goes to Parliament says, yes, we don't want this to happen, and they refuse to do that. But they have not done that. So really, if you come down and let's say if they are now calling for reforms, if we have a new election, another election now, we have just had a prospective senator who is vying for senatorship in Makueni. When he goes to Makueni, what alternative government does he tell people of Makueni CORD will offer? In terms of corruption, in terms of the economy, in terms of political organization, what is remaining in this country is probably the closest you can get to an opposition is the civil society, where people have been injured fighting for certain reforms, the Mwangis of this world. But there is nothing. So what Raila Odinga has done, you can say that he has not provided leadership. In the first 100 days, actually he has had a mass movement that thought that he could recreate Kenya. But that mass movement has not, in 100 days, given hope and said, we can have an alternative government. One of the questions I've been asking myself during these 100 days, looking at CORD and other opposition, quote-unquote opposition groups in Kenya, I've been asking, suppose CORD formed government, would we have any difference? This is the question I'm having. Would we have a difference? That I would say, yes, we have an alternative government away from Jubilee.
Some people have, sorry, just before I get to that, do you think, Moses, the problem has also been that CORD seem still, and I've heard this word used, obsessed with the loss of March the 4th, that they haven't really gotten over it? Absolutely. And gotten to a point where they can reorganize themselves to say, these are the things that we're opposed to.
And I wrote about that in the newspaper today, and the problem is that CORD has not accepted that 4th of March is behind us, and CORD has not moved on 1 inch from 4th of March. That is despite all the statements that they make on the contrary. I think we cannot be all about the past elections. And the problem with the Raila's brand of politics is that for him, the next election is always about the last one. You saw that in 2007, it was about 2. You saw that in 2012, it was about 207. We cannot, and that's what I would like to say about driving the car with the rear mirror all the time. Now he's trying to create a situation whereby now 2017 is an audit of 2013. When are we ever going to move forward?
I think you are being too fair to the so-called what you call opposition. It is not because they have not overcome the problem for March 4th. The point is they do not have new political ideas. That is the point. Because if you look at what is happening right now, you see, you cannot say that they're so preoccupied with the fact that they lost elections, and that is the reason why they are not fronting an opposition. They do not have an opposing thing. They don't have anything to oppose. You need to ask them, and the Republic needs to ask everybody within the opposition to say, what are you opposed to? And we want to have 1, 2, 3, 4 things that they are opposed to. And then would you have done better in their own political parties? Because CORD is a conglomeration of several parties, just like Jubilee is a combination of parties. If you ask them, where is the internal democracy? Because if you start accusing the IEBC of doing wrong things and probably despising our democratic dispensation, then you should ask, is there democracy? Right now in CORD itself, there are people who think that certain people have outlived their usefulness.
Actually, let me just put that question straight to you.
Yes.
Is it time for Raila Odinga to give way for new, fresh people in CORD? I think we've heard the names, the likes of Dalmas Otieno being mentioned. Is it time for him to move on?
I think if you look at it, not to move on, to move on, move aside, because the point is that he has a certain group of people around him who will never leave him to do what he thinks, probably what he dreams about, and these people are not going to give way. They keep rushing to him. You saw the fiasco about the Ruaraka elections and how somebody was told to go away, to give ways for another one. There are people who make decisions in court who will not allow any new ideas to come. So the best way to do is probably...
Is Raila one of them?
I think he has friends, and I think he's one of them, because he doesn't give way to, he doesn't listen to other people who have new ideas. You have seen a lot of complaints coming out from within CORD saying, you know, we want, even some people are threatening. If you read today's media, some people are threatening to do a demonstration. They are even saying, if he doesn't listen to us, we are going to probably show them that we are very powerful. This kind of sentiments show that probably...
Yeah, that's on it, the youth and women's league.
Yes, we have a team that thinks that their political leader, the leader is not democratic enough and is not accommodative enough. Let us do this the right way for our own country. And if we want to be democratic, we must start from our own homes, our own bedrooms, our own sitting rooms. Then go out and stand on the road and shout, we want democracy. But if we're going to talk about democracy only when we are in a social gathering, but when in our own bedroom, we dictate over everything that we want to do, even ordering people to dress the way we want, this is not going to work.
What about Kalonzo? Does he stand a shot? And as we talk about Kalonzo, I know I want to bring in the question of Kefi Kilonzo and the fact, of course, that she'll not be running. We've just spoken to her brother, and he seems rather pleased with the prospects. Has Kalonzo equally cost the CORD coalition, and is it time for he too to move aside?
I think Kalonzo should exit the stage after breakfast, Raila after lunch, because
and by that you mean?
I mean Kalonzo should lead the way even before Raila, because 27 years with nothing to show for it. And if I take the issue of Kelly, for example, I put the blame right on Kalonzo's doorstep. He has, if an audit is done for Kalonzo Musyoka after he quits politics, it's going to be very miserable, in terms of his record. So and then again, you look at, for example, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., what he said in Makueni yesterday, that when he was asked about this issue of boycotting, elections because of IEBC, and he said, look, let's look at the Elections Act. Now compare that with his grandfather, Kalonzo Musyoka, and see who is supposed to lead the other, who is supposed to give a good example. If Mutula Kilonzo would wake up from the grave today, how would he judge Kalonzo Musyoka and how he has misled his family? And
I think the other point that I need to emphasize here is that, is Kalonzo Musyoka a member of the opposition? No. The only reason why he's looking like he's sulking is because he's not having power. He has held power for a very long time. How democratic has he been? How much has he fought social vices, including corruption, including good governance? How has he brought in on table so that we can say that the Kalonzo we know for 27 years is a Kalonzo who stands for these values, and he was not able to achieve them because somebody blocked him. If we give him the reins of power, he will do this.
Preaching reforms with no track record of reforms themselves. Allow me to move on, Moses, because I am being counted down on time. And I wanted to bring in the question of Raila saying that CORD will boycott future elections under IEBC, I suppose, meaning if it is not reformed. Do you think it is going to seriously cost this country's democracy if such a wing that commands a lot of support across the country says we're not going to show up at the poll?
I don't think CORD can boycott elections. I think Raila can, and if it does, that's a welcome thing for this country, because as we are getting it from CORD, this country has to move on beyond personalities. When he talks about IEBC, I'm at a loss, because you look at how ODM conducted nominations in its own strongholds, things like in Siaya, in Kisumu and all that. You must be able to remove the log in your own eye before you remove the speck from IEBC. When he was given that opportunity to conduct free and fair, transparent nominations within ODM, there was massive fallout, and that actually did cost him the election, if you ask me, to a large extent.
I think, bosses, what he should be telling Anne is this, that in fact, will there be CORD to boycott the elections in 2017?
I doubt.
There might be no CORD, because even the two gentlemen, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, are straining to stay together, but they have never been together. They came together because of convenience. So there might be no code to boycott elections. I think the bottom line is this. Politics also has one side that people forget. It's not just about use of force. It is political persuasion. It is the art of persuasion. You must persuade your opponents to come to your level. And the persuasion that we need is for these guys to see how they can strengthen the Electoral Commission. The way to improve its performance. But if you just start preparing the nation to boycott elections in 2017, what is the alternative to a boycotted election? We don't want that kind of
going to the streets, some may say, and I bring this in closing because of course you know the former Prime Minister's aide Eliud Owalo has been questioned over an alleged plot to destabilize Uhuru Kenyatta's government. Do you think at all this is actually the deliberate attempt of some people? Is this another route? You boycott the election so that people can go to the streets?
I don't have any evidence against Eliud Owalo. I'm not a policeman.
Yes, we said it's an allegation.
It's an allegation. But what I can find, especially on social media and from the narratives coming from court leaders, is a deliberate effort to create that kind of environment whereby the country will never move on from the election. And actually, even this issue of IEBC, nobody says that IEBC got it 100%. We know we still have got structural and institutional issues to fix within IEBC. But you cannot use that to create that kind of environment for what they are calling the Kenyan Spring or a revolution. I think that is being unfair to this country because, you know, this country cannot be about one man. It's about to move on.
As you say in closing.
Yes, in closing, I think the movement that we are hearing is being formed is not going to work. Let me tell you this. The country has very intelligent people who can make their choices. So what would happen is that it will be treated by the contempt, if it at all it exists, the contempt it deserves. What we need is that we have chosen the democratic process. The democratic process is to accept a competition which you win or lose. What should be done right now is for us to see how do we change the rules of the election and how do we improve the Electoral Commission. One of the persons who are spoiling worsening the situation for IEBC are people like Kuria. In fact, some of his friends are defending IEBC. Jubilee has no business defending IEBC. In fact, it should forget, because IEBC declared Jubilee the winner, but that was Jubilee should not behave like in return for declaring me the winner, I should keep defending you. Jubilee has messed there and it has lost direction. In fact, Moses would tell them they are lost. Forget about that. Let them go move on.
Professor,
Professor, you should understand that.
Gentlemen.
But Professor, you have to stand for the truth, irrespective of...
Why are you defending Jubilee? As if you have a debt to pay.
You defend institutions. This is not Animal Farm. We are a country that must be led by institutions.
And on that note, we must wind up. I thank you both so much. Why were you waiting for the last 10 seconds? Professor Edward Kisiangani to my far right, Moses Kuria, I thank you gentlemen both for your time. We take a short break. I'll be back with the sports after these messages.